I wanted to ask you also about Section F. And that essentially says that the president is usually allowed to replace 3,000 or 4,000 workers. But if Section F were invoked, he could replace 50,000 workers. And one of the things that's nice about government is that there's a neutrality, that people stay from administration to administration. And this would basically allow him to put a bunch of lackeys in, and then you would start really being a third world country where we would have contracts going to friends. And so are you honestly in favor of that?
Well, to put it in, yes, I do support Schedule F. I think it's good. I think it would clean house in some respects, but just to put it in perspective, it's actually a drop in the bucket because you're talking about a workforce of 2.2 million federal government workers. So 50,000 is not that many. But then in terms of like the leadership at the top, what I found quite frightening actually was the workaday, everyday bureaucracy. You look at the staff of these professional bureaucrats. They are not conservative. They are, in many cases, lifelong bureaucrats who are very left. They donate to Democrats. They are ideologically opposed to Republican administrations. And it's not just Trump. It was the same with Bush, Reagan, you name it. So you've got a permanent ruling class that is in diametrical opposition to half of the country. So if you actually are afraid, as the Washington Post says, democracy dies in darkness, if you want to have unelected bureaucrats who are in some cases, and we have leaks, we have direct emails, statements from these bureaucrats saying, I will do whatever I can to oppose Donald Trump. That is illegal, actually, because you're supposed to follow the leadership of your branch. The election is that this party won, this candidate won, and so it is his or her authority and duty to execute the laws faithfully as according to their agenda. And so for having a permanent underclass of bureaucrats who oppose half of the country, I don't see how in any way anybody could ever say they support democracy if they support that. So I think it's a needed reform. There's a way that's got to be followed the laws and do it legally. But I think in principle, it's the right move. What do you think?
Well, a lot of these people, by the way, let me just say, about half of these people were appointed by Democrats and half of them were appointed by Republicans. And the reason that a lot of them are disfavoring to Trump is it's another example of just what I was talking about, of how much the Republican Party has changed. Okay, Donald Trump is not a Reagan Republican. Donald Trump is really not even a traditional Republican at all. He is a right-wing, illiberal populist. And that is not what a lot of these people signed up for. So my response to a lot of people that are complaining about so-called Republicans or people that were appointed by George H.W. Bush or George W. Bush or Ronald Reagan, I would say, if you're unhappy about it, look in the mirror. So we will see. But I think that you need to have some constancy in government. But unfortunately, we are out of time. But as always, that is another great conversation. And I think we agree on certainly some things here. And one thing for sure, it's going to be a much more exciting race. And we'll see if it's to win or lose for Kamala. So the expectations are low, and which is always good. So we'll see what she can do. But I will give you the last word.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that the Democrat Party didn't allow for a competitive primary. I think at the end of the day, I think it's going to hurt them because Kamala has not won a single delegate. She didn't win a single delegate in her Democrat primary. And I think that's going to come back to bite them. I think in some respects, she reminds me of a Sarah Palin, from a very ideologically, one direction. Sarah Palin was from Alaska. She just kind of floated her way to the top. Kamala Harris has floated her way to the top, and neither was ready to appeal to the entire country. And I think it's going to backfire personally. But I wish her all the best as a human being. She seems like a kind person, but her policies are going to be more of the same with inflation. So we'll see.
We shall. But at least she's not a dimwit like Sarah Palin, and she did win more than one election. But I agree, they should have had a competitive primary. I think that was a really bad error in judgment. Well, that's it for us today. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on Practically Political. I'm Dave Spencer.
And I'm Carrie Sheffield. We'll catch you next time.